With the way that Stephen Jones has been talking, it's more clear than ever that the Dallas Cowboys are headed towards a trade deadline deal. It's just a matter of who and what type of deal will it be. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some serious trade candidates for the Dallas Cowboys, along with some other teams that may be sellers and the players that they may have available here, just so we can all kind of wrap our minds around this trade deadline and some names to get familiar with. Let's get right into it. Welcome back to Attack on Cowboys. Be sure to subscribe as we're quickly approaching 43,000, and let's get into the show. Shut your up. Let's get right into it, man. We got Albert Breer. Albert Breer is giving us a list of sellers in the NFL as it pertains to some of the players that may be available. The first team that he has listed here is going to be the Miami Dolphins. It says, quote, "The Dolphins are the first seller to be past their Week 9 game, and their edge rushers have elicited plenty of interest. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, and Matthew Judon could be moved. I would pay attention to all three of those names for the Cowboys. Phillips, still only 26 and in a contract year, might be the one with the most value despite losing chunks of the past 3 years to serious injuries. The Eagles are a team to watch, with the question being how far will Philly go to get him? It sounds like it cost at least a third rounder." All right, so it sounds like the Dolphins are asking for a third rounder for Jalen Phillips. Injury-riddled guy, I'm not sure I'm giving up a third rounder from him, to be completely honest. Teams asking about Jalen Waddle have been flatly told no. But Miami may be more receptive on Minkah Fitzpatrick. That may be somebody I'm looking at, if I'm being honest. If I'm the Cowboys, I wouldn't mind upgrading my safety room, my defensive back room with the Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's a veteran. He understands how to play different coverages. And I think that he's probably going to walk in day one as one of your best coverage safeties on the team. There are also fair questions floating around on whether there are guardrails on the current regime based on the tenor of conversations. But we don't have to worry about that anymore because they just fired their GM today. So this article was written yesterday. They fired their GM today. And so the Dolphins are in 100% full fire sale mode. So chances are a lot of those players that just mentioned, Minkah, the edge rushers, all those guys are probably going to be out the door. So for the Cowboys, if I'm looking at those players, I'm taking a look at Bradley Chubb. Honestly, I know a lot of people don't like what Bradley Chubb's been putting on film, but I'm taking a look at any of those three pass rushers. I think the most coveted one obviously would be a Jalen Phillips. He's the youngest, and I think he still has the most meat left on the bone. Pause. Matthew Judon, I think that would be a nice budget move, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Cowboys get stuck with making that move, but he does not have much production at all this year, so that wouldn't be anything I'm super excited about, if I'm being honest. Next up, we have the New York Jets, man. The Jets are an interesting option, mainly because of the Aaron White-Cotton connection, mainly because we know the Cowboys are going defense, and mainly because we know that the positions on defense that they're going, White-Cotton has a direct line to. So the Jets also have edge rushers of interest. The team has no plans to move Will McDonald IV, but is listening on Jermaine Johnson II. That's somebody the Cowboys should be going after. Johnson has a year left on his deal after this one, and it sounds like New York would want a second-round pick for him. I don't know. Veteran defensive end Michael Clemens is available as well, as is linebacker Quincy Williams. Maybe the most interesting one here, though, is Breece Hall, who's the centerpiece of the offense, and they want a third for him. They just said it today. Not gonna lie, I might throw that third out there. I ain't gonna lie to you. There might have been a point this summer where he'd have gone for a fourth rounder, but at this point, even on an expiring deal, it'll likely take a day 2 pick to pry him from the Jets. Yeah, they said today they want a third. Out of those guys they just named, I think for the Cowboys, Jermaine Johnson II, the linebacker, is probably an interesting option there. You got somebody to help you on that front seven, and I think he comes in just as a better ball hawk than the linebackers you currently have. He's a little bit more instinctual than the guys that you have on the team right now that's currently playing. New Orleans Saints. The Saints, obvious connection there. Kellen Moore. Will Kellen Moore want to scratch the Cowboys back? That is the question. The Saints receivers have been the subject of a lot of talk. New Orleans has received calls on Chris Olave, but the team has shown more interest in extending him than dealing him away. Rashid Shaheed, a burner who's only 27 and in a contract year, has drawn calls too, but the asking price of a day 2 pick has scared teams away to this point. Teams have reached out on cornerback Alontae Taylor too, and those calls have reached a similar conclusion. with a similar price tag. Day 2 pick proving a bit too rich for a guy on an expiring deal. All right, so the Saints, they out there MF in mind. They sorry and they asking for too much. I'm not doing business with the Saints unless they come down on some of them prices. Bro. I ain't gonna lie to you because none of them dudes that his name worth no second or third round pick. I ain't gonna lie to you. Tennessee Titans. To me, the Titans are the team the Cowboys have to be calling. I think that it would be Titans and Dolphins, and then Jets. Dolphins and Jets probably are the same tier, but Titans are probably first team I'm calling because I think they have the players that can make the most impact for your team right now, whether it be a Tavondre Sweat, a Jeffrey Simmons, or somebody like that. Very, very interesting. The Titans are open for business on anyone but Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons. Well, never mind. They have already dealt Roger McCreary and have gotten calls on edge players Arden Key and Draymond Jones and tight end Chiga Kwankwo. The team plans to be cognizant of Ward's development as he tries to make sure all organizational tumult doesn't affect his trajectory, so they'll be careful about further gutting certain areas of the roster. One interesting name could be uber-talented but underachieving defensive tackle Tavondre Sweat, whom teams have sniffed around on a bit. Tennessee would like to see if a new staff can reach him. So it sounds like he's having some issues. Maybe the loose environment's getting to him. Maybe a change coming back to the great state of Texas. He played at the University of Texas. Maybe that would help Tavondre Sweat, but I don't know. That kind of sounds like some Mozzie Smith going on there. I don't know about that. Las Vegas Raiders. The situation in Las Vegas is interesting in that Pete Carroll, this is obvious. The Cowboys honestly have an inside lane with a lot of these teams that are going to be sellers, bro. Whether it be Pete Carroll and Brian Schottenheimer or Aaron Whitecotton and the Jets or Kellen Moore and the Saints. They have a lot of really nice pathways to get a deal done here. And I think that kind of goes even more towards the fact that, hey, maybe we will see something happen for the Cowboys. But the situation in Las Vegas is interesting that Pete Carroll is trying to build a program, and the roster is so thin that trades could undermine its ability to make progress on that front over the back end of the year. Teams have called on tight end Michael Mayer and cornerback Eric Stokes and have been told no. Guard Jackson Powers Johnson has drawn interest too and has had his fits and starts with the new staff, so there's a possibility he'll get moved. Interesting. Jacoby Myers' name has been floating around for a while, but that's another spot where the Raiders lack depth. There haven't been many calls on him either. With his deal up, he could bring more in a 2027 comp pick than a trade. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if the Raiders got anybody you really want besides Max Crosby, but they can damn sure take Jalen Tolbert if they want to give us a third-round pick so we can put that somewhere else. Cleveland Browns. The Browns aren't aggressively working the phones to sell off pieces, but tight end David Njoku looks like a name to watch. If Cleveland gets a firm offer and Njoku's signs off on the idea, the team would want to do right by him. Interesting. That said, this is another team that wants to support its young quarterback for reasons different than Tennessee's. In this case, it'd be to get as clean a read on them as possible ahead of 2026. All right, then we got some quick hitters here. There are a few teams in the middle. One is the Commanders, who could use some edge help but have a few pieces with Javon Kinlaw and Deebo Samuel that teams may be interested in. Another is the 49ers, who added a player this week with Keon White, whom they believe could be an effective edge that can bump inside in their nickel and is under contract for another year. San Francisco is a perennial contender, of course, but will be without Nick Bosa and Fred Warner for the rest of the year, has been incredibly beat up in general, which might make them a little bit more hesitant to spend picks on players coming in for only 2025. I doubt that'll happen. I ain't gonna lie to you, I doubt that'll happen. And then we have the Bengals with Logan Wilson. I think that's a very obvious, natural fit for the Cowboys. And then now we have a list specific to the Dallas Cowboys so we can get some actual names on that may fit with our team, y'all. So let's take a look at these names that are specific fits to the Cowboys. The first would be Patriots outside linebacker Anthony Jennings. His contract expires after 2026. The Patriots have already moved on an edge rusher in recent days, as Keon White is now with San Francisco 49ers. But given how Anthony Jennings has been passed up in favor of guys like Kelvon Chason and Harold Landry III, they could look to gain some compensation for him as well. Jennings is an early down run defender that could provide some needed assistance off the edge with his instincts against the run. Since his 6'2", 255-pound frame isn't the biggest on the trade market, along with his non-existent production in the pass rush department, there will certainly be some better options out there, but if the Cowboys are looking for a cheap way to add a body to the edge room, this could be a potential fit. I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know. Who's this written by? Who's this article written by? Oh, Nick. It's written by Nick Harris. I don't know. That's I don't like that idea right there, because you have Jadeveon Clowney and Donovan Ezraku, who are playing very, very well off the edge, especially set the edge and playing in the run game. I am not going to hamstring Donovan Ezraku's production to bring in a rental. And I'm not going to knock Jadeveon Clowney off of his incline of production to bring in a rental. I'm just not doing it. Jets outside linebacker Jermaine Johnson II. I do like this one. Depending on where you look, the buzz around the New York Jets is what they plan to do around the trade deadline varies. If they decide to move off some of their more talented pieces to acquire draft capital, the Cowboys could see what the price is for Jermaine Johnson II. Quinnen Williams isn't a likely option to get moved even if the Jets start selling, but Johnson could make sense as one New York would offload. Since a breakout Pro Bowl campaign in 2023, he's dealt with injuries that have limited him to just 7 games in the last 2 seasons. But given where the Cowboys are in finding help on the edge, taking a swing on Johnson while his price is low could prove fruitful. Y'all love these injured players. I wouldn't hate it, but it would have to be like a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick type of deal. I'm not giving anything day 2 for a guy that's injured. I'm just not. I'm just not. Bengals inside linebacker Logan Wilson, contract expires out 2027. The Cowboys could make a strong case for adding an instinctual player in the second level of their defense, and Logan Wilson is one of the most public trade candidates on the market entering the deadline. Wilson's time in Cincinnati is all but certainly coming to a close, and his clear displeasure could lessen the price tag to acquire his services. In 2024, Wilson was rated by Pro Football Focus as one of the top 5 linebackers in defending the run. In 2025, he's a top 3 linebacker in the NFL in pass rush grade. The versatility could give Dallas some needed reliability in the second level ahead of the return of the Marvion Overshown. I do not place any credence on Pro Football Focus's grading system. I think a lot of the NFL world is starting to catch up to the fact that they just have a bunch of 20-year-old interns using AI programming essentially to assign these grades to guys. So do not pay attention to PFF, y'all. I'm dead ass. But I do like linebacker Logan Wilson as someone that could come. I told y'all, I think that he could come in and he could kind of help the Marvion Overshown be able to come back and have a smoother transition, but not being like he's feel like the rush or anything, right? So I like that one. Giants defensive end Kayvon Thibodeau, not happening. The Giants are not going to do that. I'm not even going to, no, we're not going to read this because he just said some crazy stuff about the Cowboys and stuff too. So crazy idea for me right there. I just don't think the Giants do an in-season trade in division while they're still trying to compete essentially this year. That's crazy work. Cardinals defensive end Zaven Collins. Contract expires out 2026. With the Arizona Cardinals coming to town on Monday night, there will already be a natural meeting between Jerry Jones and the Cardinals front office this weekend if they choose to do so. Collins has been one of the more stout edge defenders in his 5 years in the league, and the Cowboys could desperately use a savvy veteran run defender to contain the edge. The versatility of Collins to play anywhere on the defensive line could give Dallas a boost in multiple areas, while also maintaining the flexibility of some of its other defensive linemen, such as Marshawn Nealon. While he isn't necessarily a known trade candidate at the deadline, Collins could be a sizable piece that's moved to jumpstart what may need to be an offseason rebuild for Arizona. Interesting. That's one I would keep an eye on right there. I like that. Steelers defensive tackle Keanu Benton. The Steelers may not be willing to part ways just yet with their 2023 second-round pick, but his fit in Pittsburgh has been ideal as their starting nose tackle. Coming out of Wisconsin, some teams viewed him more as a 3 technique rather than 1 technique where he's been playing for Pittsburgh. Benton hasn't had issues putting pressure on quarterbacks, but he has suffered some lapses in defending the run. We need guys that can help. We need guys that can help in that category. I think the pass rushing and stuff, man, leave that to the edges. We got guys in the middle that can rush the passer, bro. We need run defenders. Dolphins inside linebacker Jordan Brooks. His contract expires after 2026. One of the more underrated linebackers in the NFL, the Dolphins could look to move Jordan Brooks at the deadline to acquire some draft capital in the offseason. A tackle machine who has a knack for getting into the backfield, both in pass rush and against the run, Brooks leads the NFL in total tackles. In Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer's final season Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator, Seattle selected Brooks in the first round, and he was an immediate contributor for their group. In 6 seasons, he has amassed 741 tackles. Ooh, that would be a nice one right there. I like that one, Nick. I ain't gonna lie to you. I like that one. Raiders defensive end Tyree Wilson. If you dig hard enough, you can already see the clickbait headlines. Cowboys trade for Raiders defensive end. No, not Max Crosby, whom the Raiders have publicly said they won't be moving at the trade deadline. But if the Cowboys want to keep sifting through the options in Sin City, Tyree Wilson could make some sense. After being drafted with the number 7 overall pick out of Texas Tech in 2023, Wilson hasn't come close to living up to the hype. The East Texas native has combined for just 69 tackles and 10 sacks in 40 games. Ouch. But a 17-game average of around 4.5 sacks with his limited snap count would actually be an upgrade in the defensive end room for the Cowboys. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true with the guys that you have in there. I don't know. I don't know. The defensive ends, bro, unless it's a clear upgrade, I'm just really not trying to add another body in there. I want a guy that if you're going to add something to the defensive end room, it has to be a guy that can really make a tangible impact. Tavondre Sweat, he has him listed on here as well. And I do believe that Tavondre Sweat should be an option for the Cowboys. And then Trey Hendrickson is the last guy to round out that list. So that's some of the serious trade candidates for the Cowboys. That's some of the guys that would make sense. That's some of the guys that we know are available. Now, hopefully, there may be some guys around the league. They're kind of like surprises or kind of on the hush-hush a little bit because they don't want to hurt their feelings. There's always situations like that where teams don't want certain information getting out because they don't want to rock the boat or anything, right? But either way, let me know in the comments below what type of trade would you want to see the Dallas Cowboys make. Be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe for more Dallas Cowboys content just like this. Them Cowboys.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still them boys? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still them boys. Hey! Woo! Oh, shut up, my boy. Hey! I'm still them boys.